What separates America from its enemies? That's the question Congressman Jason Crow threw at Pete Hegseth, and the silence, the hesitation, the refusal to answer directly tells you more than any speech ever could. Because if a leader can't even say out loud that the United States is morally different from terrorists like ISIS or al-Qaeda, then we have to ask, what does that say about the state of our politics?
Secretary Hegseth, we have a lot of things in common. In fact, our careers started the same way. We were both infantry officers. We were both platoon leaders. We both deployed our platoons to combat in a counterinsurgency environment. There are very few better leadership training grounds in that experience, and it's that experience that I want to transport us back into time, back to Lieutenant Hegseth and Lieutenant Crow. There are a lot of things that make a leader and that make a unit effective. Would you say that unit cohesion is important?
Unit cohesion, amongst many, is very important, yes, sir.
It's an important element. And part of that is making sure that all members of your unit felt included in that team, correct?
Far more important that every member of that unit felt capable to do the mission and united in that mission.
But that they were included and felt part of the team as well.
I wouldn't use the word inclusion, sir, but yes, they were cohering as a team, yes.
And that you reduce tension and infighting and points of tension between your platoon members so that you can focus on the mission. That was a part of the regular job.
Absolutely. That's why I've said that our diversity is our strength is the single dumbest phrase in military history.
And words are important.
Our unity is our strength. And so unity amongst members, despite differences of backgrounds, race, whatever that is.
And I agree with you on that.
Together on a mission.
And part of that is words are important and setting the tone is important, correct? When you're a leader.
All aspects of leadership, mostly leading by example.
Did you ever tell them your political affiliation? Did you ever tell your platoon members your political affiliation?
We certainly discussed lots of topics, and I'm sure my political affiliation.
Did you ever ask them theirs?
No, their political affiliation was never a concern to me.
Because it's important that everybody feel included and that people weren't excluded, correct? That would be antithetical to leadership.
I'm sure my platoon contained Republicans, Democrats, and independents, and I had no idea what their affiliation was.
Okay, that was actually my next question, so I appreciate you answering that. You led your unit in a counterinsurgency environment, and you interacted with civilians, correct?
Interacted with members of the civilian population in Iraq, sure.
Yeah. And you were, in fact, a COIN instructor, a counterinsurgency instructor, correct?
In Afghanistan in 2011 and 2012, I was the senior counterinsurgency instructor.
And you signed off on a manual. There's actually a counterinsurgency manual that you signed off on and helped create. And your name is on that manual, correct?
We were a part of creating a lot of content at the COIN Academy, yes.
Do you remember this portion of the manual? It says, if you've killed two innocents, you've set yourself back more than you've moved forward. Do you still agree with that?
I would have to take a look at the manual, but obviously no one in warfare is seeking to kill innocents.
Okay. Because it's important to show why we're different from the enemy. Because we're not the enemy, right? We're different from our adversary. Would you agree with that? We have different morals and different values.
We are not the enemy, sir.
We have different morals and we have different values than the enemy.
We have a code, a uniform code of military justice.
So the answer to that is
yes.
yes.
Formations that
you're not trying to compare us to al-Qaeda and ISIS, are you? We're different.
I know the code of the United States military and army that I signed up for.
You can't tell me whether we're different?
My right hand.
You're not willing to say we're different?
Of course we're different.
Okay, thank you.
It's absurd.
That's why I'm trying to reconcile the fact that we learned many of the same lessons as platoon leaders about unit cohesion, making sure that people were included, that we didn't ask people's political affiliation, that we interacted respectfully with civilian populations, that what a leader says matters, that the tone you set matters, that we are not the enemy, that we are different from them, we lead differently, we have different morals. How can I reconcile that experience and those lessons learned from Lieutenant Hegseth to now Secretary Hegseth, where you say things like what you just saw here, making us equivalent on the same standards as our adversaries, doing the same things that ISIS and al-Qaeda would do? How can you possibly reconcile that? I can't. And just the other day down at Fort Bragg in our beloved 82nd Airborne Division, sitting there while we politicize the military and pull our paratroopers into politics, booing elected officials, booing politicians with whom we disagree. It's antithetical to our values, and you, sir,
Gentleman's
have changed.
time's expired. Chair, and I recognize the gentleman.
What Jason Crow does in this exchange is more than just questioning a witness. He's holding up a mirror to America itself. This isn't about catching Pete Hegseth in a gotcha moment. It's about asking the kind of question that forces us to think about who we are, what we stand for, and why that matters now more than ever. Both men once wore the same uniform. Both once stood in the same boots, leading platoons of young soldiers into combat. That's no small bond. War, especially counterinsurgency warfare, is one of the harshest teachers in the world. It strips away illusions, it tests every weakness, and it teaches lessons that stay with you for life. And the lesson Jason Crow is reaching for here is simple but profound. America's strength doesn't come just from firepower or numbers. It comes from values. Think about that. Unit cohesion, trust, respect, these aren't buzzwords. They are the difference between a unit that survives and one that falls apart. Soldiers don't care about your political party when the bullets start flying. They care about whether they can trust you, whether you respect them, and whether you'll stand by them no matter what. And Crow reminds us, you don't build that kind of trust by dividing people. You build it by including them, by making sure every soldier, no matter where they come from, what they believe, or who they are, feels part of the team. That's not weakness. That's the foundation of strength. But here's where it gets deeper. Crow presses Hegseth on counterinsurgency, a doctrine that both men knew well. In that kind of warfare, winning isn't about destroying the enemy outright. It's about winning hearts and minds. It's about showing the civilian population that you are different, that you fight with restraint, that you hold yourselves to a higher standard. Because if you kill innocents, if you abandon those principles, you're not just committing a tragedy, you're losing the very battle you came to fight. This is why Crow's question is so cutting. He asks, aren't we supposed to be different? Aren't we supposed to lead with different morals, different values? And notice how uncomfortable Hegseth becomes when pressed on this. He hesitates, he dodges, almost as if admitting the obvious, that America should never be compared to ISIS or al-Qaeda is somehow politically dangerous for him now. That hesitation says everything. Because when leaders start blurring that moral line, when they start acting like winning at all costs justifies anything, America risks becoming indistinguishable from the enemies we condemn. And that is the ultimate betrayal, not of politics, but of the very soldiers who fought and died, believing that their country stood for something higher. Crow's frustration is our frustration. How do you reconcile the lieutenant who once understood these truths with the political figure who now treats them as disposable? How do you explain a leader who once signed off on manuals teaching restraint, now leaning into rhetoric that undermines it? The answer is you can't. And that's exactly why Crow's voice here matters. Because this isn't just about one man. It's about the soul of American leadership. It's about whether we, as a nation, choose to uphold values even when it's hard, even when it's inconvenient, or whether we toss them aside the moment they clash with short-term political gain. History shows us when America forgets its values, when it loses sight of its moral compass, it loses credibility, it loses allies, and it loses its own reflection in the mirror. This is what makes Jason Crow's message so urgent. America must be different, not just in our rhetoric, but in our actions. Because if we stop being different, then what exactly are we fighting for? And that's the real takeaway. Leadership isn't about slogans. It isn't about stirring up division. It's about living the values you claim to defend. That's what makes democracy strong. That's what separates us from the very forces that threaten it. So when Crow challenges Hegseth, he's not just confronting one man. He's reminding all of us of the responsibility we carry as citizens, to demand leaders who honor those values, to resist the temptation of cynicism, and to hold on to the belief that America can and should be better than its enemies. If you agree with that, if you still believe values matter more than political theater, then stay engaged, speak up, hold your leaders accountable, because democracy doesn't defend itself. It takes people who care enough to demand better.